You back row. The black one. Stand up. A racist professor stood in front of his classroom, pointing at a 19-year-old black student, ready to prove he didn't belong in advanced mathematics. He wrote an impossible equation on the board, one that had defeated PhDs and geniuses for 40 years. 5 minutes to solve it. 5 minutes to fail in front of 40 witnesses. The professor thought he was untouchable. He thought this was just another student to humiliate and break. He had no idea who he was dealing with. 94 seconds later, his 23-year career began to crumble, and a 24-year-old's secret started to surface. Because this wasn't just about one equation. This was about a stolen legacy, a dead father's unfinished fight, and a son who refused to stay invisible. This is what happens when the underestimated fight back. And trust me, you want to see how this ends. Let me tell you about a moment that changed everything. A moment when silence became power, and the invisible became unforgettable. Denver, Colorado. Riverside University. October 15th, 2 p.m. In room 248, Professor William Bennett stood at the front of his classroom like a king surveying his kingdom. 23 years of tenure. 6-figure salary. Untouchable. That's what he thought, anyway. You. Back row. The black one. Stand up. Those words cut through the air like a knife. 40 students went silent. All eyes turned to the back corner, where a young man named Daniel Hayes sat frozen in his seat. Daniel was 19 years old, the youngest student in advanced number theory by 2 full years. Every single day, he chose the same seat, back row, far corner, where nobody looked twice. He never raised his hand, never volunteered answers, never showed anyone what he could really do. This was deliberate, calculated, because Daniel had learned something painful early in life. Being seen had a cost. Being noticed meant becoming a target. Stand up, Professor Bennett repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. Daniel stood slowly, his heart pounding but his face calm. Look at this class, Bennett said, circling him like a predator. A black face in advanced mathematics. Tell me, son, did your welfare caseworker fill out your application, or did some diversity committee drag you here to fill their quota? A few students gasped. Most stayed silent. That's what fear does. It turns witnesses into statues. Bennett walked to the blackboard, grabbed a piece of chalk, and started writing. I'm going to write an equation that has stumped PhDs. Geniuses have quit trying to solve this. And you, Daniel Hayes, you're going to prove exactly why people like you don't belong in real mathematics. The chalk scratched against the board, filling it with symbols and numbers that looked like a foreign language to most people in that room. 5 minutes, Bennett said, stepping back with his arms crossed. Impress me or drop my class. Today, what Professor Bennett didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have known, was who Daniel Hayes really was. Daniel had been solving graduate-level math problems since he was 15 years old. Self-taught, no expensive tutors, no prep schools, no connections. Just him late nights and a stack of old notebooks he'd found in his grandmother's attic when he was 13. Those notebooks didn't belong to Daniel. They belonged to his father, a man named Thomas Hayes, who died when Daniel was only 6 years old. Daniel barely remembered his dad, just fragments. A warm hand on his shoulder, the smell of chalk dust, and one sentence that burned itself into his memory. Numbers don't lie, son. People do. For 13 years, that's all Daniel had. Then he found the notebooks, page after page of equations, proofs, theories, all written in handwriting that felt strangely familiar. Thomas Hayes had been a mathematician, brilliant beyond measure, working on problems that most people couldn't even understand. Daniel spent years teaching himself from those notebooks. By 15, he wasn't just reading his father's work. He was continuing it. By 17, he was solving problems that graduate students struggle with. By 19, he was quietly one of the most talented mathematicians at Riverside University. And nobody knew, not his professors, not his classmates, not even his mother. Daniel kept his gift hidden, protected, save for when he truly needed it. That moment had just arrived. He stared at the equation on the board. His classmates watched, waiting for him to fail. Professor Bennett smirked, already savoring the victory. But something shifted in Daniel's mind. A recognition, a memory. He had seen this exact equation before, in his father's notebook, dated 1994. And in the margin, 3 words, solved. Method C. Daniel's hand stopped shaking. The classroom noise faded away. All he could hear was his father's voice echoing across the years. He picked up the chalk and began to write. "What are you doing?" Bennett laughed. "Don't embarrass yourself, son." But Daniel didn't stop. His hand moved with absolute certainty. Numbers flowed. Symbols aligned. His approach was unconventional. Nothing like the textbook methods. Nothing like anything Bennett had ever seen. Because it wasn't from a textbook. It was from a dead man's notebook. A method that had never been published, never been shared. Until now, 30 seconds passed. Then 60. The smirk disappeared from Bennett's face. Students leaned forward, sensing something extraordinary was happening. 90 seconds. Daniel set down the chalk, stepped back, and turned around. Done. The classroom erupted. Students started clapping, then cheering. Professor Bennett stood there, his face pale, staring at the board like he'd seen a ghost. That's not possible," he whispered. "You couldn't have—" "It's correct, sir," Daniel said quietly. "You can verify it." And it was correct. Completely elegantly, undeniably correct. A 19-year-old kid from the south side of Denver had just solved in 94 seconds what had stumped professional mathematicians for 40 years. Bennett's hands started to tremble. "Where did you learn that method?" "That's not in any textbook." "My father taught me." "Your father?" Something flickered in Bennett's eyes. Fear. Recognition. "Who is your father?" "His name was Thomas Hayes. He died when I was 6. For just 1 second, Professor Bennett's mask shattered. The arrogance vanished, replaced by something that looked like panic. Then he recovered, his voice ice cold. "Class dismissed. Everyone out. Now." As students grabbed their bags and rushed to the door, Bennett turned to Daniel. "You'll be hearing from me, Mr. Hayes." Daniel walked out of that classroom, not knowing that he just triggered an earthquake, one that had been building for 24 years. Within hours, the whole campus was talking. But Daniel wasn't celebrating. He was thinking about the look on Professor Bennett's face when he heard his father's name. That wasn't surprise. That was recognition. That was fear. And Daniel was about to find out why. 2 days later, the email arrived. Subject: academic integrity violation. Immediate meeting required. Daniel read those words over and over, his stomach sinking. Academic integrity violation. That meant cheating. That meant expulsion. That meant everything he'd worked for, gone. He walked into Professor Bennett's office at exactly 4 p.m. The door closed behind him with a sound like a coffin lid. "Sit down, Mr. Hayes." Daniel sat. The chair was deliberately uncomfortable. Bennett folded his hands on his desk. His voice smooth and professional. "Your performance 2 days ago has raised serious concerns. No sophomore solved a problem like that in 90 seconds. Not without help. Not without cheating." "I didn't cheat." "Then explain it." Bennett spread his hands. "Explain how a 19-year-old from the South Side, working night shifts at a warehouse, barely scraping by on financial aid, somehow solves a problem that defeated professional mathematicians for 40 years. Daniel kept his voice steady. "I told you. My father taught me." "Ah, yes. Your dead father, the mathematician." Bennett's lips curled. Very convenient. A witness who can never be questioned. He slid a document across the desk. "This is a formal complaint I'm filing with the dean's office. You have 2 weeks to prove you didn't cheat. If you can't, and let's be honest, you can't, you'll be expelled. Permanently." Daniel looked at the paper, seeing words like fraud and misconduct scattered throughout. "I learned that method from my father's notebooks," Daniel said. "He was a mathematician. He worked on that exact problem." Something flickered in Bennett's eyes again. That same fear Daniel had seen in the classroom. "Your father's notebooks," Bennett repeated slowly. "And what was your father's name again?" "Thomas. Thomas Hayes. The mask slipped further. Bennett stood abruptly. This meeting is over. You'll receive formal notice within 48 hours. I suggest you withdraw now and save yourself a humiliation. I didn't cheat and I'm not withdrawing. Then you're a fool, Bennett said. Just like he stopped himself. Just like who? Daniel asked. Get out of my office. Daniel left, but one thought consumed him. Bennett knew something about his father. Something he was desperate to keep buried. That night, Daniel called his mother. Mom, I need to ask you something about Dad. Long silence. Then, why are you bringing this up now? Because a professor is trying to expel me for cheating. And when I mentioned Dad's name, he looked terrified. His mother's voice broke. What's the professor's name? Bennett. William Bennett. A sharp intake of breath. Then crying. The kind Daniel hadn't heard in years. Come home this weekend, she said. There are things I should have told you a long time ago. Things about your father. Things about that man. When Daniel arrived home, his mother was waiting at the kitchen table with a cardboard box he'd never been allowed to open. Your father was a student at Riverside 24 years ago, she said, her hands trembling. The most brilliant mathematician in his program. Everyone said he'd changed the world. She opened the box. Inside were letters, documents, photographs. A young man with Daniel's eyes. Daniel's smile. What happened to him? Daniel whispered. His advisor happened. She pulled out a letter, yellow with age, dated February 1995. Dear Mr. Hayes, following the investigation into academic misconduct, your enrollment at Riverside University is hereby terminated. Daniel read the signature. William Bennett, department chair. His blood ran cold. Bennett was Dad's advisor? More than that. His mother wiped her eyes. Your father developed a breakthrough, the same equation you solved. He was going to publish it, make his name, change everything. And Bennett stole it, published it under his own name in 1995, built his entire career on it. She could barely continue. When your father tried to fight back, Bennett accused him of plagiarism, of stealing his own work. The university believed the tenured professor over the young black graduate student. No investigation, no fairness, just destruction. Daniel felt the room spinning. How did Dad die? His mother finally met his eyes. He couldn't live with the injustice. The knowledge that his life's work had someone else's name on it. He left a note saying he couldn't fight anymore. And then She couldn't finish. Daniel understood. His father hadn't just died. He'd been killed, slowly, deliberately, by a man who stole his dreams and walked away clean. I'm not going to let him win again, Daniel said. Please, just transfer. Walk away. Dad walked away. It killed him. Daniel stood. I'm going to finish what he started, and I'm going to make William Bennett pay for every life he destroyed. The next 2 weeks were hell. Whispers followed Daniel everywhere. That's the kid who cheated. Typical affirmative action fraud. They always get caught. His study group stopped responding. His lab partner requested a transfer. Professors looked through him like glass. Then came the letter that nearly broke him. His appeal hearing was scheduled for November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving, during academic break, when the campus would be empty. They were trying to execute him in silence. Daniel called everyone he could think of. Every office was closed for the holiday. Every door shut. Every hope crushed. For the first time, he understood why his father gave up. The system wasn't broken. It was designed this way. Built to protect people like Bennett. Built to crush people like Thomas Hayes. Like Daniel. Maybe I should just walk away, he whispered to the empty room. That's when he found the envelope at the bottom of his father's box. To Daniel, when he's old enough. His father's handwriting. Inside was a letter that reached across 24 years. Son, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. They took everything from me. But they couldn't take you. You have the gift. One day you'll be better than I ever was. And when they come for you, because they will, don't make my mistake. Fight, even when it hurts. Even when you're alone, because giving up isn't peace. It's just another kind of death. Daniel held the letter to his chest. tears streaming down his face. His father had known this day would come, and he'd told Daniel exactly what to do. Fight. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Instead, he organized every piece of evidence. His father's notebook states equations cross-referenced with Bennett's publications. The pattern was undeniable. Thomas Hayes's work, 1994. Bennett's publication, 1995. Same equations, same methods, same solutions. His father came first. Bennett was a thief. But Daniel knew evidence alone wasn't enough. Not against a tenured professor with 23 years of institutional protection. He needed someone on the inside, someone Bennett couldn't silence. He found her name in the faculty directory, Dr. Rachel Torres, Associate Professor of Applied Mathematics, MIT PhD, the only other person of color in the mathematics department, known for fighting battles others wouldn't touch. Daniel sent her an email at 5:47 a.m. Dr. Torres, my name is Daniel Hayes. You don't know me, but I need your help. Professor Bennett is accusing me of cheating, but I have evidence he's been hiding something for 24 years. Something about my father, Thomas Hayes. Please, you're my last hope. He hit send and waited. Hours later, his phone rang. Close the door and sit down, Dr. Torres said when he arrived at her office. She pointed to a photograph on her desk, a group of young graduate students. You see that man? Second from the left. That's your father. We were in the same doctoral program in 1994. Daniel's heart stopped. You knew him? I knew him well. The most talented mathematician I'd ever met. Her voice hardened. And I watched Bennett destroy him. I was 22, scared, trying to survive in a department that barely tolerated my existence. Speaking up meant losing everything. She met Daniel's eyes. I've carried that guilt for 24 years. I'm not staying silent anymore. Dr. Torres made calls. Within 48 hours, she'd assembled an independent panel. 3 mathematicians whose credentials were so impeccable that the university couldn't ignore them. Dr. Benjamin Crawford, MIT Emeritus. Fields Medal nominee, Dr. Catherine Reynolds, Stanford cryptography expert, and Dr. Gregory Sullivan from Princeton, who'd been at Riverside in 1994. The evaluation was brutal. 3 hours of graduate-level problems designed to separate genuine talent from fraud. Daniel solved them all. But it was Dr. Sullivan who changed everything. After the test, he pulled Daniel aside, tears in his eyes. I knew your father. We were in the same program. He was the best of us. His voice broke. When Bennett stole his work and accused him of plagiarism, we all knew it was a lie. But we were scared. We said nothing. He handed Daniel an envelope. This is my written statement. Everything I witnessed. Everything I should have said 24 years ago. I'm not failing your father again. November 28th. The hearing. On one side sat Professor Bennett, confident and smiling. On the other, Daniel, Dr. Torres, and the truth. Bennett spoke first. This is simple. Mr. Hayes submitted work no undergraduate could derive independently. The only conclusion is academic dishonesty. Daniel stood. I didn't cheat. The method I used came from my father's notebooks, dated 1994, a full year before Professor Bennett published the same solution under his own name. Dr. Torres placed documents on the table. This is Thomas Hayes' research proposal from October 1994, describing the exact methodology Bennett published in 1995. This is a formal complaint Thomas filed in February 1995, alleging his advisor stole his work. Bennett's face went pale. We have independent verification of Daniel's abilities. Dr. Torres continued, producing the panel's assessments. All 3 experts confirmed he's a genuine talent. The plagiarism accusation is baseless. Then came Dr. Sullivan's statement, a confession 24 years in the making. Bennett tried to speak, but no words came. For the first time in 23 years, he had nothing to say. The dean's voice cut through the silence. The charge against Daniel Hayes is dismissed. An investigation will be opened into Professor William Bennett regarding research misconduct and fraudulent accusations. Daniel exhaled. 24 years. Finally, justice. But he stood one last time. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here for my father's name. Thomas Hayes was brilliant. He was 21 when his life was stolen. He deserved to be remembered, not as a fraud, but as what he really was. A genius who changed mathematics, even if nobody knew it. He placed his father's notebook on the table. That changes today. The investigation took 3 months. For cases of misconduct confirmed, 3 former students came forward. 2 decades of stolen work exposed. Bennett's tenure was stripped. His publications flagged. His awards rescinded. He wasn't fired, he was erased. Last anyone heard, he was teaching remedial math at a community college 2 states away, making $40,000 a year, living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Riverside University officially credited Thomas Hayes as the original author. The Association of American Mathematicians issued a formal correction. 24 years of lies undone. A scholarship was established. The Thomas Hayes Mathematics Scholarship, funding first-generation students. Kids from the South Side. Kids like Daniel. Daniel published his first paper that spring. The impossible equation. Solve his way. The dedication read, "For my father, who solved this first, who taught me that numbers don't lie, and who deserved so much more." Dr. Torres became department chair. Dr. Sullivan donated his savings to the scholarship. Penance for 24 years of silence. A year later, Daniel stood in front of the classroom as a teaching assistant. Same room where Bennett tried to humiliate him. Different energy now. In the back row sat a quiet student, invisible, just like Daniel used to be. After class, Daniel approached him. "You're good at this. I've noticed." The student looked surprised. "You noticed?" Someone always notices. Sometimes they tear you down. Sometimes they lift you up. Daniel smiled and handed him a notebook, a copy of his father's work. "This helped me. Maybe it'll help you." Here's what the story is really about. It's not about mathematics. It's about power. Who has it? Who doesn't? And what happens when someone decides you don't belong? William Bennett looked at Daniel and saw a target. He didn't see a prodigy. He didn't see a legacy. He didn't see a son carrying his father's dream. He didn't know who he was dealing with. 23 years of lies, undone in 94 seconds by a student he thought didn't belong. Maybe someone has underestimated you, made you feel invisible, told you that you weren't good enough because of your skin, your background, your neighborhood. Maybe you're still waiting for your 94 seconds. Here's what I want you to know. It's coming. The people who underestimate you don't know what you carry, what you survived, what you're capable of. They see your surface. They don't see your depth. Keep going. Keep fighting. And when your moment comes, make them learn the hard way. Because the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes 24 years.